being authentic can never harm another. And that is because at your base, you are love, and love is not negative. There's nothing wrong with loving your truth, and we are all entitled to the right of living our truth, speaking it, embodying it, aligning with it. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I am your host, Alyssa Dawn, and if this is your first time here, then welcome to the show. I hope you enjoy the topic that we have at hand, and maybe check out a couple other episodes that we have on here. And if you are not new and you have visited once, twice, thrice, or more times before, then welcome back. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. So today is something that I wanted to talk about because it has been a large recurring theme in my life right now, and that is how to speak hard truths with love. And so it's very broad. It can be applied to nearly anything, I would say, as long as it's like your truth and like you just like have this like terrifying fear of like speaking it out loud, whether it be in your relationship with a loved one, your partner, a friend, a family member, or sometimes even to yourself. Like, I mean, this is just in general. I feel like growing up and hearing like, if you don't have anything nice to say, then don't say it. I feel like that taught a lot of us to just kind of bite our tongue and like force it down and not be honest with ourselves and with others. And I feel like that is such an old adage that like it actually is more toxic than not, in my opinion. And so I would actually reframe that and say, if you don't have something nice to say it with love. Because if you put anything through the lens of loving another person and thinking about them, and this is not loving them, and so you're going to speak your mind and live your ego and like force it on them. Those are two different things. So that's where it's like, if you focus on love and the other person and just wanting their best self, then how you word it will be with their best interest in mind. It's just kind of like, it's the same thing like with criticism. There's constructive criticism and there's destructive criticism. And constructive criticism, while it can be a hard pill to swallow, it is done in a way to empower the other person. Destructive criticism tears them down. And that's where I'm sure you've experienced this with loved ones, both constructive and destructive criticism. I know I have. And then maybe, you've even played the role of being critical of another person in both a destructive and constructive way. Like, this happens to all of us. We all do this at some point while we're learning how to communicate with others and how to communicate in an effective, non-toxic way, especially when we are surrounded by examples of communication that are not conducive to a foundation in a relationship that provides love and safety and security and confidence. And so the other thing about this too is like, when you speak a truth of yours, like, and this is like, once again, not having your ego involved of like what you know over another person or anything, but something that is just so much a part of you and your honest expression of yourself. Being authentic can never harm another. And that is because at your base, you are love, and love is not negative. So if you are aligning with your true self, your highest self, your soul expression, then you being authentic and coming from that place will always be coming from love. As a side note, if you hear any weird sighs or clinking or jangling, my dog is currently in the room with me. And so I am hoping that he'll keep napping, but just a heads up, if you hear any weird sounds, I'm not doing any background vocals or anything. It's just him hanging out with me. But yeah, so speaking hard truths with love. The very first step is you need to be able to speak it to yourself. You need to recognize that, this thought that might be recurring a lot, and you are just kind of finding that like you're holding yourself back and just you're needing to bite your tongue. Anytime that you just have this feeling of like you're just going to implode because there is something inside of you and it needs to come out and you're not letting it come out, that's probably a sign that you are restricting your truth and you are not speaking something that very much wants a voice. And that can be like just feeling stuck and feeling the need to express it, whether verbally and with your voice, or maybe it's through writing, maybe it is through dance, maybe it is through art. Whatever way it wants to come out, if you have this feeling like you just are like vibrating with energy and you're restless and you don't know where to put it, chances are you have something that wants to come out. And then like the very first thing is just needing to sit back with it and recognize when you're having that reaction, whatever it is. Like sit back and be like, whoa, wait a second. What is this and where is it coming from? Take a look at your surroundings. Who are you with? What are you talking about? If it's maybe music, are you hearing something and it's triggering something within you? It is calling to a part of you that wants to respond. Whatever the input is from around you or potentially within you, if there's a thought that you're having or an emotion that is coming up, take note of it. And this is where it may not be an automatic, you feel something and then you know exactly what it's referring to. This might be something that it needs to happen a couple times before you start to realize like, hey, every time I'm with this person and they do this, or any time that I'm with like this person and they say this, I have this emotional reaction to it. Or even if it's like anytime that you do something in yourself, or you play a part and a role in your relationship with your partner, and anytime that you do something, you have this like kind of like feeling. I don't know how else to explain it other than almost like through like kinesthetic movement of my body and making random grunt sounds and just that kind of stuff. Start to pay attention to the signs that you are receiving, that there is a truth within you that needs to be expressed. When you start to find the patterns of experiences and situations happening and then this reaction to it, that's where it's like, how is it calling for you to respond? How is it calling for you to speak your truth? Is it, once again, is it through communication, through verbal communication? Is it through writing a letter? Is it through just writing a post, not even necessarily directed to the person that might be triggering it? And maybe it's just like something in general that you need to get out. Maybe it's a way that you want to express yourself, not necessarily within a relationship, but just in general, in your relationship at large with the world. Whatever it may be, work, whatever it may be, take the time to get to know your triggers and take the time to get to know what the message is, what the truth is that is trying to get your attention. And that's where the other thing too is, in my own experience, whenever I found my truth, and I think that quite a few of you will kind of resonate with this as well. Once I find my truth and it's like, oh my God, yes, like this is exactly what it is, I have the next thought of, shit, how can I possibly express this to my loved ones? How can I possibly share this part of myself without, 1, being rejected, 2, having an angry reaction from them, or even like, just pretty much, like, I can't even think of other examples because it just kind of boils down to the fear of being rejected, misunderstood, labeled by something that is not aligned with my truth or anything like that. Just that kind of discordant response to something that I just want to vibe with and flow with and just follow the current as it's supposed to be followed. And that's where, especially when it comes to speaking a truth for yourself of a habit that you've been having, oftentimes when it comes to families or relationships with significant others and partners, oftentimes it could be a shared habit, and maybe it's a toxic habit. And in you speaking your truth, the fact that like, hey, this thing that we've been doing, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, this is actually really bad for me. This doesn't allow me to live aligned with my truth. That one, aside from being scary for expressing yourself and speaking that out and allowing yourself to be vulnerable in the relationship, two, it can also potentially trigger them because they might potentially take it as, oh, hey, so if this is bad for you, you're saying that me doing it, like I'm choosing to do something bad. It can be a completely different podcast to talk about how others will perceive your messages of love. But like, all it comes down to is what people choose to perceive. It's none of your business. All you can really do is express yourself from a place of love and authenticity and trust that they will receive it as it is meant to be received. If they are triggered and if they are pushing back, saying that you're being mean or you're the one being ridiculous or toxic or just being really stupid, that's where it's like, that might be triggering them because they may not necessarily want to face that truth themselves, because maybe it is a truth that they hold and they aren't quite at a place to accept it. And so with that in mind, that's where it's like, if there is friction when you are trying to connect with another and trying to connect in an honest, authentic way, it's because where you are in your life, the other person is not quite there yet. We all grow at our own and right timing. And so it's never wrong if you make a realization before someone else, because, hey, guess what? They're probably going to make a realization that you don't make. And there's nothing wrong with that. We are all different. And so we're all going to have different epiphanies and realizations. And we're going to enlighten ourselves on the path that is meant for us. And so while we may all come to, like, at the end of the road, realize one thing to be true for all of us, that does not mean we will all find it at the same time. And so then that is where, in speaking your truth, it is also having understanding that it is your truth. And whether it is a universal truth, it is not our right and it is not our place to tell others that it is theirs as well. As you want respect and understanding from others for how you carry yourself. I'm sorry, he's snoring if you can hear it. It's super cute. Anyways, I'm sorry if you can hear it. I don't remember what I was saying. Did you wake yourself up from that snore? You're okay. What was I saying? But yeah, so it's just kind of like, all we can do for others is plant the seeds. They must water it themselves. It's the same thing like how you found your truth. There are sprinkling of seeds that just happen. We receive things like outside of ourselves or internally through our intuition, but like growth in general is a collective process. We do not do it alone. And even if it's not the people directly around us that we grow with, we are not growing alone. So if that means needing to have a bit of distance in order for you to hold the space for you to feel validated in your truth, then that's okay. Take the space, boo. Do you. And then that's where, in the same way that you want to be respected for the realizations that you have made and the emotional growth that you are going through and the truths that you are holding, also hold space for the other person where they are, wherever they are in their growth. And so then the other thing too is, because I feel like this is something that I've kind of come across in my conversations of sharing my truth with others, that they don't necessarily agree and sometimes they might get triggered. People may take offense when they hear that they're not growing at the same pace. But that's where you need to be aware of the role that the ego is playing. It goes on both sides. So like when you are talking with another person and they may not be where you are, that does not mean you are better than them. That does not mean that you are further along than them. See the previous point of we all grow at our own paces. But yeah, make sure that as you're sharing your truth and you are feeling empowered in it, don't let your ego stand up on that pedestal. That is not their place. They do not need to be here for that. There's nothing wrong with loving your truth, and we are all entitled to the right of living our truth, speaking it, embodying it, aligning with it. You should feel empowered and validated in living your truth, and you should also feel all of that in sharing it with others. And so yeah, once again, if you don't have something nice to say, say it with love. Until next time, bye.